Good evening or afternoon. So not good to go last. There's dinner waiting someplace. This presentation will be in four parts. Background, objective, research, and conclusions. I'll put a break slide between so there's no confusion. Basically, we're starting with the background. And I want to start with terminology. Now, near-death experiences are pretty well accepted as abbreviation NDE. For this presentation, we're going to be speaking about spiritual contemplative experiences, meaning spiritual meaning not necessarily tied to a particular religion, contemplative meaning a silent, thoughtless form, which some of you are familiar with. And there are four attributes that are going to be similar to each of these. And I'll go into detail more in the presentation, but these pictures kind of capture a little bit of it. Both of them share a common attribute of being out of body, outside time, a certain sense of peacefulness, and then a certain sense of wholeness or oneness. Okay, but we'll get into it in more detail. There have been 4 different conferences that I've given presentations at, and I'm going to mention these because there's not a lot of cross-fertilization, and I think there needs to be more of it. The first conference I attended was the Mind and Life Institute conference. At the invitation of the Dalai Lama, he invited my mentor, Trappist monk Thomas Keating, and Keating asked me to be his advance man, and he had profound research on brain scans of Tibetan Buddhist monks. Mostly Richie Davis is responsible for that. And there's a reason for mentioning these conferences, but the next is the brain disorders of consciousness. And we can learn a lot about consciousness by disorders instead of just the orders. And that played a central role in this research because I was asked by the leader to present a Christian form of meditation at this conference, and we didn't present it right away. What we did was we just gave the neuroscience research without planning on giving any teaching of it, and I'll get back to that. Then there are profound researches that's been done by Harvard, University of Chicago, etc., and it's held at the Conference on Medicine and Religion, and I approached them as I was on the Institute, and we co-represented or co-sponsored these in Houston. Houston is the largest medical center in the world, so the format was appropriate. And then the European equivalent of that is the European Conference on Spirituality and Religion, Spirituality, and Health. Now, the book that pretty much summarizes the research that's been done on the last 2 conferences is a handbook of religion and health, and it basically is a summary of all the different research projects. And it breaks into about 3 parts. The first part is, if you have a simple faith belief, you have a better sense of well-being, and there are a lot of different research on medical conditions that relate to that. And then also, whether you attend a church attendance once a week, you can lead living 7 years longer. And then also research on prayer. This was discursive prayer, which lessened depression. But those were just 3 out of thousands of research projects. Now this was independent. All of this is independent of research on contemplative practice in the brain. So to talk about that, there are 2 types of prayer. They're shared between all faiths. All faiths have both these 2 types. Discursive or cataphatic, like a guided meditation, and the second, contemplative or apophatic in the Greek. And I am a teacher of centering prayer myself, and I learned this at the Trappist monastery with when Merck was in Gethsemane, and then Thomas Keating, also a Trappist monk. And it can lead to contemplative or what was called mystical prayer, and we're going to call the real serious events of this contemplative prayer SCE. Now, I want to just tell you how I teach it so that you know that you probably can relate to it, I'm sure. in your different traditions. One, we pick a sacred symbol. It could be a word or an image or a breath, and it becomes a symbol of our desire to be with God. And so this is a prayer form. It's not just a secular form, okay? We sit in a comfortable position, hands on your knees, eyes closed, and preferably not a lot of interruption. Obviously, sitting in a lotus position is acceptable, but you don't want to see me try to get up out of that. Then as thoughts come, and they will, every time you become aware of your thoughts and become aware you're engaged with your thoughts, you ever so gently return to your sacred word. It's a symbol of, I'd rather be with you, God, than even my own thoughts. It's a total surrender. And then you withdraw gently from the distant scene back to the present. Okay? Now, I wanted to give you the nutshell so that you know where I'm headed. Okay? How was this research conceived? And I think we're comparing your death with spiritual contemplative experiences. And I think sometimes the background on how research is conceived can be very informative. In teaching this to thousands of people, I have noticed a unloading of the unconscious to the conscious brain and a healing that would take place. So, for example, I taught it to about 10 people, and one of them returned. I said, how's it going? He said, not well. And I said, what happened? He said, well, I remembered totally what happened to me in Vietnam. And I said, what did you do? And he said, I ever so gently let it go and returned to God. I told this to the head psychiatric department of Baylor College of Medicine, where we've done fMRI studies, and he was stunned. He said, we have trouble treating PTSD. Now, that symbol there is an iceberg, meaning there's only about 5% of conscious, 95% is submerged. And basically the person became aware that it could be healed, because now they knew that they were ready to let go. So the second experience was I taught this to a group of 10 people, and not knowing their backgrounds, and at the end of the 20-minute sit, their very first sit, 3 of them looked at each other and started to describe how they had relived a previous near-death experience in their life during that 20-minute sit. And I want to tell you, I was flying the wall just listening. And it was profound to hear them experience the same thing they experienced in their near-death experience. And that set in my memory. And I stored it, I thought, I've got this in my memory. And I thought, well, we'll just see what happens. Okay. Then I was introduced to a man by the name of Calixto Machado. He's one of the world's experts on bringing people out of coma. And he invited me to lead a team into Cuba to present the effects of prayer on the brain and neuroscience-wise. This was that Disorders of Consciousness conference I was telling you about. And this was historic because even though we weren't talking about religion, it was the first time that the thought of prayer and talking about prayer in Cuba, after 56 years since the revolution, it was historic. It was the first time. And while I was there, and I pulled the team together, it was this bigger than Bob, I can assure you, and pulled the team together, and while I was there, he said, why don't you teach century prayer in a breakout session? And I said, basically, I told him, are you crazy? Is this, you think we should do this? So I did. And the person who invited people was his daughter. And her name was Janine, and she's also an MD neuroscientist. And I realized that it needed to be taught in Spanish because even though it was an English conference and people from all over the world were there, nuance in words is critical when you're talking about this. And so I had a friend in Cuba who was an expert at teaching this. I invited him in. He taught it in Spanish. I gave the science, he taught it in Spanish. At the end of 20 minutes, she starts to describe to her fellow neuroscientists a profound out-of-body experience that she had in that first 20 minutes. And their eyes popped open. Because in Cuba, though they're excellent doctors, they are not used to hearing this perspective in research. So knowing that Calixto was an expert in bringing people out of coma, he's one of the world's experts in bringing people out of coma. It dawned on me to say to him, recalling that experience I had earlier, of these people that come out, many of them talk about near-death experiences. And he said, oh, all the time. And I just about crawled over the table as a scientist and said, and you got brain scans of these people? And he said, well, I don't know what was happening when they had the experience. And I said, all we gotta do is look for patterns, you know? Well, he then talked to his daughter, and she explained to him what happened. Now he's on board. And so now we launched into the research and how to do it. So our objective was basically to study the two transcendent states of consciousness. Now, you'll see a little bit later why I call it transcendent, because this is really between this world and the next, if you believe in the next world. And 87% of the population does. And the four attributes that are similar are the paranormal out of body. And I'm not surprising anybody here. I know you've heard this in other talks. Spaceless ecstasy in the SCE. A sense of timelessness. So in the SCE, it feels like the prayer is sharp. It's 20 minutes, but it feels like 3. The other is a certain affective peace and a wholeness or perfection. And the final is the transcendent experience of the divine or spiritual, whatever you might have in your background. And in terms of SCE, it's a sense of oneness. And I give symbols of all the religions because these are experiences that are not limited to a particular religion. This is a transcendental experience in a sense. And I call this transcendent consciousness because it's between this world and the next, in theory. Okay? What are the motivations? Well, Interface described SCE and NDE, and they've done so for centuries. If you read back over the ancient writers, they do. Conferences need for fertilization, cross-fertilization. These conferences that I'm talking about are not like this one, and they don't cross-fertilize. And I can tell you that because the only person I saw at all of them was I was bumping into myself. I went, there must be somebody else. Okay? The religious, people of religious belief, and that's about 87% of the population in the U.S., I can't say worldwide, but believe in this transcendence between this life and the next. Medicine debates the bioethics of defining death, and my friend is involved in that all the time. People have recorded reliving of NDE and SCE. I gave you an example. Reliving NDE SCE. Neuroscientists seek the consciousness neural correlates, and science recognizes similar NDE and SCE attributes. So a research objective was to compare neural correlates of remembering NDE and SCE. Why remembering? Well, I told my friend Calixto, he's a neuroscientist, I'm not. I said, well, we can't catch him in this. They're both are pretty unusual. And he said, well, we'll just have him remembered. And I'm going, well, hold it, is this valid? And he pointed out to me that it is valid because in PTSD, for example, if you're triggered, you relive the experience. And so there is a way of remembering these things and not necessarily guaranteed, but of reliving these things through remembering. It was unique because as far as we know, this has never been studied together. So this is the first time you're going to hear this reporting. It hasn't been published yet. And hopefully the results will shed light on the motivations that I gave in one of the previous slides. Committed researchers, I had my name last, and Calixto absolutely fought me on it. But he's really the neuroscientist doing the brain scans. Janine, his daughter, is an MD, neuroscientist. Mauricio is her husband, also a neuroscientist. And Harold Koenig, I told you earlier who he is. Andrew Newberg did scans of Francis nuns doing centering prayer. Make it quick, we decided to choose a new tool. We needed speed and spatial. And that was a fairly recent tool, quantitative EEG tomography. It gave us both the spatial and the temporal. So contrary to the abstract, this was the result of what we were going to use. The research protocol, 5 NDE and 5 SCE subjects, and we use a bracing scale, which is accepted in NDE as a guide as to what is got to be done. And people take the test and they can see whether they really have experience. There's a neurological exam to be sure there's no brain damage. We do a resting state, QEEGT. I had a guided meditation to help people get into the remembering of it, and memory scans of QEEG. In the gamma frequency, in the baseline, you can see there was absolutely both in NDE and in SCE subjects, there was showed a parietal occipital activation extending to the temporal regions, but it was also greater in SCE. So there was definitely a link in the gamma frequency. Alpha frequency, 3D constructed, reconstructed, showed the same trends. There was definitely a correlation, but greater in the SCE. Delta frequency, I'm sorry, I guess I did less time than I realized, but there was increased activation for both NDE and SCE, both the right and left temporal lobes, but well greater in the right hemisphere, yet overall greater for SCE. And the frontal lobes, we ran into the same correlation. Okay. Now, what were the conclusions? Well, the preliminary conclusions, and I say preliminary because we didn't have cast of thousands of subjects, but there was a significant QEEGT correlation across broad frequency ranges between remembering NDE and remembering SCE. This is consistent with the common bracing scale attributes of both. Most frequencies were higher for SCE, consistent with the fact the subject was not dying. Gamma frequencies imply greater cognitive activity, alpha, greater concentration, delta, greater memory processing, and frontal lobe activation, greater attentiveness. The limitations, even though my neuroscience friend says it can be remembering, obviously it's not an assurance that it's the same as the original event, and we could use more subjects for better statistical significance. Transcendent events, we're talking about two here that we've been studying. Moody described the first in NDE, and I didn't give the source before, but that's the way he described it. And William James gave those. So already people knew that there was a correlation. But there's a third event that's between this world and the next, if you believe that. And that's a third transcendent event, and that's the singularity of the Big Bang. Look at the correlations. Spaceless, timeless, dimensionless, there's no material, basically. It's effectively a dot in a piece of paper. Cognitive, timeless, it's timeless because there's no light in this singularity. And there's an affective piece, wholeness, perfection, in other words. Well, it's completely ordered because it's zero entropy at the singularity. Second law of thermodynamics is disorder continues to increase. Well, the singularity is perfectly ordered. And the transcendent oneness, well, you're talking about unified forces, of Einstein's unified forces. So Einstein's theories led to these, and they match. I think that's interesting, but that's not part of the study. So people talk about the sense of oneness for the universe. Why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't it be? And forward, preliminary conclusions, encourage expanded study of more subjects. I think that has to be done. The tool that we used is fantastic, and we're proposing to do that in the future. And for a lot of these brain studies, I'm a little bit surprised it's not being used more. It has application, I think, in palliative care to explore the use of sacred prayer or other forms based on traditions. I'm not trying to exclude that. To help people lessen their fear for their preparation for death. Now, near-death experiences, 97% are pleasant. There are a few that aren't pleasant. But it would be helpful to a lot of people that are scared. And collaborative research is an interdisciplinary cooperation with future studies. I think that's important because we're dealing with more than just neuroscience. We're dealing with palliative care, how we apply it to patients and help people. And we're dealing with theology and philosophy and a lot of different fields. If you want to contact me, my contact's